My name is Derek. Welcome back to another podcast. I've got Matthew with me, and Matthew does primarily commercial pools, but let him explain that. Matthew, who are you? What do you do?
So I'm the owner of Bennington Pool Services. We specialize in commercial pool management. So we provide services to apartment complexes, HOAs, and we open their pools. We're in the Northeast, so we have to open them. We provide lifeguards all year, then we close them in the winter. We also do repairs, renovations, new equipment builds, and everything like that. So pretty much anything under the sun for the commercial side of the clients.
Okay, excellent. And you said Northeast. Where is that at?
So we are located in King of Prussia and Pennsylvania. So we range all the way down to Dover, Delaware, a little bit of Maryland, Southwest New Jersey, so the southeastern side of Pennsylvania. So,
okay, excellent.
Yeah. So what I found is the pool world's so drastically different when you don't need to open them and close them. Somewhere like California or Florida versus the Northeast. So,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is different. And since you are in that area, I'm going to ask you some questions about that because I'm in the southeast, you're in the northeast, but completely different climates. We don't like to close our pools down there. So from a standpoint of closing the pool and open the pool in the Pennsylvania type of area, does that have to be done?
Yeah, so you definitely have to winterize them, blow out the lines, airlock everything, drop the water level, maintain it all year because with rain it goes up. So, but yeah, we are definitely in the territory of you must winterize everything. Okay. So, which brings always a fun spring opening too.
Okay, so when do you typically close a pool? Like what month or time of the year?
So most of our contracts, the last day for our lifeguards is Labor Day weekend. So anytime from there to, I guess, the end of October, we're closing. So we have roughly 90 commercial accounts that we'll get on the closing schedule, and some we close earlier for some particular reason if they're surrounded by trees, because we view closing pools as just as important as opening. The better we close them with making sure leaves don't get in there and making sure we balance them right. If we can open a pool when it's blue, clean and clear, that's how you know we did it right. So that's always our goal. So,
okay. So in my area, there's very few people in the Greenville, South Carolina area that close, but there are some, and there's two different types that will do that. One will do what you're talking about, blow out the lines, put the safety cover on, and actually three. And another type will keep the pool running year round, which is what we tell people to do in our area because it's just so costly to bring that pool back from a swamp during the springtime. And then there's the other one, which is what I want to ask you if you guys do, maybe put the cover on and leave the pool running for another month or two so the leaves can fall, but they won't go in, yet that water gets maintained. Do you have any of that?
So we've entertained all aspects of, hey, how can we close it more efficient? Because the downside to closing in September is you still have a lot of heat, a lot of sun penetration. So when that cover's on and there's no water moving underneath it, it creates a problem. That's when you're gonna have your algae growth. And our goal is to get the pool to its first freezing point and keep it blue. So we've entertained that, but a lot of our clients, with it being like apartment complexes, from a budgetary standpoint, once they're closed up, they don't want to keep the pumps out, or they don't want to keep the pumps running. I think it's a good situation to do that in that scenario, and that's probably best case, because you could go around, slap every cover on, and then come back and winterize and your waters. But it doesn't really fit in the, we call it the multifamily world for apartment complexes, so it doesn't really fit their scope. But I think that's definitely the proper, in the best case scenario, what we would do. So.
Okay. I am liking that we're having this particular, because my audience, it ranges all over the country, and people will ask me questions that are from Jersey or Pennsylvania or Maine, and I'll be like, this is what we do in my area. You need to contact a pool pro in your area. So this is good info. When you do open, what kind of time frame, area, temperature, what do you?
So we typically, and the way our business is we don't have outside clients calling us. So we have our contractual clients that we work with. So I already know how many we're going to have from this year. So when we start on April 1, basically, and what I always tell my clients is someone has to be first, someone has to be last. We always try to time it out with the right scenario for each client. So some of our high-end luxury apartment complexes, they want it perfect by April 1. That way they could use it for leasing purposes because it's a showcase for these places. An HOA, they don't need that. But April 1, we start ripping the covers off. We typically save our flush and fills for that time. The earlier the better, because the downside to opening that early is you got to maintain them for that long too. So that means we have more trucks going back out, more chemicals, and it needs to go to our maintenance department to keep that thing looking good, because the last thing you want to do is get a pool blue if it wasn't blue and then it turns green on you. And then we're being very counterproductive. But April 1, typically, by May 1, we're pretty much all open, finishing up our renovations. But the weather, we push as hard as we can, no matter how hot, cold, or rainy it is, because, with the commercial pool world, we have a very limited amount of days to get these things perfect, open, and ready for our lifeguards to roll into. So every day counts so much. So we kind of always look at it like this, this countdown to opening day, and we only lose days, and we don't really force our guys to work out in the really bad weather. So when we lose days like that, or an equipment breakdown, we just push as hard as we can, so that way by the time May comes along, we are just maintaining and cleaning and making sure the clients are happy. So
excellent. So we jumped right into pools. So I want to kind of step back and ask you an off-the-wall question. I try to ask everybody this just because it gets a feel. If you were going to be a superhero, Matthew, who would you be and why?
It's a good question. I'm not too big of a hero guy, but I would kind of have to say Batman. And Batman's more of like a low-key guy, low maintenance, shows up when he needs to, and again, I don't know every attribute of him, but that's the one guy, I would say, like a low maintenance guy who's there to save the day. So that's who I'd want to be.
Okay, yeah. I gotcha. So right back into it. You mentioned the word flush and fill. For the people that are watching and listening, what is a flush and fill? So
a flush and fill is when we come out to the pool in the spring, and for this purpose, we'll just say it's bad. First thing we do is we test the water. The big topic of conversation nowadays is cyanuric acid. You could only dilute it, all right? So if a pool ran off trichlor the whole previous year, even though we're draining it down in winter and it's going to dilute a little bit, we find, especially new clients that we take over, we'll take over a commercial pool and it has a cyanuric acid level of over 100, and it's a really bad way to start off the season. So with that being said, so we make two determinations on if we drain a pool. If it's to the point that it doesn't seem savable, so sometimes contractors, or it's the owner's part too, there'll be 2 feet worth of leaves down there. So if we think it's going to be quicker to drain it and handle it, we will. Or if the water chemistry is just to the point, we've drained blue pools before. It's not ideal, but we want to make sure that the water chemistry is safe for the swimmers. So those are our big determining factors. And essentially what we do is, right in there, we drain it down. We typically pressure wash it, acid wash it if necessary, and fill it back up. So that is, I would probably say 25% of our clients get that. In this market, for some reason, apartment owners love to push the flush and fills, but to a point, it's almost a bad thing to keep doing it repetitively year after year, because between the plaster and what you're doing to it. Even if you do a mild acid wash every single year, your best option is to maintain good water chemistry and not have to do a flush and fill. And there's a whole bunch of other factors that go into it too. In Pennsylvania, you have the Clean Streams Act, where you have to be very cautious on how you dump water, where you dump water, what the water chemistry is. You can't just throw 3 trash pumps in and let it rip. We're very cautious on what we're doing to the environment around the pool, from erosion, if there's any streams. So there's some situations where we can't drain pools, or we have to get pretty creative with overflow tanks and everything like that. So, but it's easier when we could just walk into a green pool, drain it. We could drain a pool very quickly and do that. But yeah, about 25% of our clients do that. So, and
you hit on the hot topic, which I was hoping that you were going to, because it's more, I'm not going to say prevalent, but it's more dire in a commercial pool. But in my area, CYA, in my area, for commercial pools, now I wish that I could mandate this for backyard pools too, but 100 CYA parts per million and up is not even legal. So I legally have to drain that down for my commercial pools. I'm assuming it's the same way with you?
Yeah, so it varies. Being in 4 states, everyone kind of has their own guidelines, but we have some places as low as 20.
Really?
Yes. So it's hard to run a cyanuric acid pool, a trichlor pool, and you could only run a 20 ppm because, from the get-go. Now, health departments aren't, depending on where you're at, some are more strict, some are not. But I think the crazier effect, other than if they're testing it or not, is the effects that it has on your other chemical readings. So let's just say they don't catch that for whatever reason, you're more than likely going to be off the wall somewhere else at that high of a level. So, and we have people not test it in health departments, so can't tell you why, but it's kind of hit or miss. But I think with the industry going the way it is, it's being brought to light a lot more in the health department world, and we educate them more too. We want the health departments to be educated, because at the end of the day, they're the ones helping us keep the pool safe. They're a major part of that. So the more we could educate them, the better. And it's increased over the last 5 years on how they're testing it and what their beliefs are. So, but we run most of our pools off trichlor. We have salt and trichlor. We don't use a lot of liquid chlorine. We just don't have the supply chain in this market that makes it accessible for us. So a lot of our pools are trichlor, and we like it in the sense of we could pick it up. It's all in our house. We're not waiting for a big truck to come or anything like that to load up a 150-gallon tote. But we are actively looking into what other solutions are there as far as the cal hypo tabs. So we dove in and did a few test runs on that last year, because we kind of get the same thing that we're looking for. We want the accessibility to the product, and we keep it in our house and everything like that. So, but yeah, CYA is a hot thing, and there's a lot of controversy around it, I still feel like. So,
yeah, especially. You see, I have a retail store, and I've got a large swath of the South Carolina area that we maintain pools in, and what you were saying earlier is you walk on the pool deck, and this is a new client, and they may have heard of you, but they might not know you. They might have just been Googling it and find, okay, well, this guy can take care of pools. I'm going to bring him out and have him give me a quote, and I will come on the property and I'll say, your CYA is so high that I literally can't test it. With my test kit, we're going to have to drain the pool. Well, the water's crystal clear, and I have to explain that, and it's like I'm the bad guy.
Yeah.
And what I like to tell them, and you probably do it too, is like what we used to know back in the 80s was not necessarily correct, because we know other stuff now. Like back in the 80s, a cell phone was a big brick, almost like a backpack. Well, now it can fit in the palm of your hand, and it can also, do Facebook or whatever, technology's come a long way, and so has what we have learned. You were talking about, you run trichlor pools for your commercial. I run in my area mostly cow hypo, but I do have trichlor feeders on my commercial pools. But I'm running cow hypo tabs.
Interesting.
So I do both. And it's from what you said earlier is what you want to maintain. And if you're running mainly trichlor, and for those of you that are watching and don't know what trichlor is, that is the regular old white 3-inch tab that you can pick up anywhere. That's what that is, trichlor. And cal hypo is calcium hypochlorite, or a calcium-based chlorine product. Typically, it comes in a granular form, but for commercial, and now what has just been released in the past 18 months is a tablet for backyard pools. So with that being said, I mean, what is your typical day like whenever you're taking care of a pool? Your company, when you go out there, what are you looking for? What are you doing?
So with us having lifeguards at probably 70% of our pools, the typical day for an area manager is they roll up to the pool, and we start looking at this pool from the time like we're still in our vehicle, and that's how we train our people. We want to see what the environment's like, because the first thing that we dive into is the lifeguard environment. Is the lifeguard doing everything they're supposed to be doing? Is it a calm environment? Is it out of control? So once we kind of diagnose that, we'll walk into the pool, do our lap around the pool, make sure we check for the visibility, the cleanliness, and making sure it's up to par from that standpoint. We'll talk to the lifeguard, look at their readings, check out the log books, do readings ourselves. Most likely give the lifeguard a break, do pump maintenance. We equipped all of our area managers with, I guess, a portable vacuum to make sure that anytime they go, God forbid there's a little bit of leaves in the pool that the lifeguard missed or the wind blew in, we always instruct them to do it. Unless the pool's really busy, we give them a very ininvasive way to clean the pool in and out really quick. So like a battery type vacuum. So, but we're really there, the lifeguards are there to keep the pool safe, and they test the chemicals and they alert us of issues, but we're there to do quality control probably 5 days a week, 5 to 7 days a week on every commercial client. So,
okay. So from a different point of view, I'm there, I've got my family there, so I just walk onto this pool, and I'm just visiting, or maybe I live there, and I want my kids to go in there and splash. What are some things that I could look for? You mentioned safety, and safety is something that I preach constantly about chemicals and all of this other stuff. People putting trampolines next to their pool and jumping in. No. Don't do that. I've seen crazy stuff on Facebook, and you have too. And
yeah.
People are like, oh, this was so funny. My kid jumped off a roof into the pool. I'm like, that's not funny.
Yeah, it's really not.
No. So from a visitor or a bather standpoint, looking at a pool, is there anything that they could do to kind of make sure the pool is safe?
Well, I think the first thing is we'll talk less about like what they could see versus like more like the environment to keep themselves safe.
Okay.
So we could put a lifeguard at a pool, and the lifeguard's there to maintain the pool and to keep everybody safe. But at the end of the day, and we employ a lot of lifeguards. I was a lifeguard myself for many, many years, and I've been at many pools for long days. But what you always want to do, especially when you bring your family there, is don't assume that the lifeguard is there to just keep an eye on your kid. Our rule of thumb for every one of our clients is to, you have to be within hand's reach of your child if they cannot swim. And that's a really big one. I mean, I think people misconstrue the lifeguard as the babysitter. And it's not that we want to provide bad customer service or we want to do anything to not make it an enjoyable experience. But at the end of the day, they're lifeguards, and they have to look at 30 plus people in the pool. So if your child cannot swim or has swim assist equipment on, or they're not a strong swimmer, I always tell people, just assume the lifeguard's not there, because you don't want to count on that one lifeguard just for your child. And and with all of our pools, we train, and sometimes it takes training. We train all of our residents to stay with the kids nonstop. And as far as the other things that I would look into, when I go to a pool, I look into the pool, is it clear? And the second thing I do is, are the main drain covers on? It would blow your mind how many times I see this in the commercial world. Especially, I kind of separate the commercial in a few different categories. And what we do is a lot of small commercial. The apartment complexes, we're averaging around 30 people a day. It's not high traffic commercial. So you would be amazed on how many pools I've seen without the main drain covers on. And it's horrifying, I'm sure, as you know, for so many reasons. So, can we see the main drains? Are they on? But also, is the lifeguard testing the water, or is somebody testing the water? We belong to a local pool right around our office, and I see them test the water every hour as required, and nothing makes me feel better because you're keeping track of it. So now I'm a pool professional, so I'm going to nitpick that. But the other things I would look at is the pool clean? And I kind of view it as it's a representation of who's running the pool, and if they're willing to let the easiest thing in the world be, which is the cleanliness of the pool. If they're willing to let that slide, what else are they willing to let slide? Is the motor on? I've seen pools sit stagnant for 2 days because the motor was down, but they still kept it open, and they were just dumping chlorine in. We took a pool over midsummer one time, and it did not have a motor on it. And the pool was crystal clear. We almost missed it in our walkthrough because we were with our client, but it didn't have a motor. But the pool company, I guess, was just dumping chlorine in, and the worst part is the client didn't know. And had they known, they probably would have approved the motor. But we see in our world as pool management companies that it's not just pools that we have to worry about. We have to worry about lifeguards and staffing and kids showing up. So I do feel like in our sector of the industry, sometimes the service gets missed a bit, because they're so concentrated on the lifeguard side. And as much as we want to keep the pool safe there, we got to keep them safe in the pump room too. So that's what I would look at as a consumer, is it clean? Are all those things visible? Is the lifeguard being proactive too? And I'm sure there's many times, even if you go to a pool in a casino, for example, there might not be a lifeguard. So are other people's kids safe? Because I will walk out of a pool if I see it being unsafe or see kids, because I don't want to be responsible for that. I want to put our family in the best possible situation to keep everything safe. So those are the main things I would look at.
Excellent. So you mentioned main drain covers, and you want those on.
Yeah.
You were saying that you go into a lot of pools and you don't see those. Well, I've got backyard pools that I say, if I'm servicing your pool, we're putting a main drain cover on and we're charging you for it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I mean, that's no discussion. We have to, because that was the whole thing with the Virginia Graham-Baker Act, is a girl got trapped on the main drain and she got her hair tangled, and that's part of it. And if you don't have a main drain cover there, well, there's not really anything to block somebody to get sucked down to the bottom, and that goes into safety. And I'm guessing you're the same way. If there's no main drain covers, we're going to fix this?
Absolutely, and we even take it a step further, is we need documentation on how old your main drain covers are. New Jersey's done a great job with this. They have a CB20 form, they call it. That's their form that they use, but they track everything on your main drain covers. So they'll double check the flow rates and everything. And and more importantly, the expiration date. So every year on every client, we need to figure that out. And if we don't know it, if a client can't tell us the last time it was replaced and they were a new client, we have to put a new one on. And because it's, for as cheap as main drain covers are, relatively speaking, there should be never an excuse or reason to risk someone's life. You know, outside of drowning, I think the main drain's the number one, you know, concern in a pool. You know, like how dangerous that is. So yeah, we wouldn't even look at a pool without a main drain cover. So, and God forbid one ever came off or anything like that, we shut down right away. We kick everyone out of the pool until that thing's back on. So,
people are mad at you, but it's a safety deal. You are literally saving somebody's life.
Absolutely.
And you also said earlier that a pool is just a daycare center where people can just drop their kids off and let them go?
Sometimes that's what people think, yeah. And I think...
Can you touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, I think in today's world, that's what people think lifeguards are for. They think the lifeguards are babysitters. And in a perfect world or in the movies, yeah, sure. But at the end of the day, it's, you know, again, I'm a professional, so, you know, this is very close to me. I couldn't imagine letting a lifeguard and just be solely responsible for my child. You know, it's like, that's your responsibility as an adult and as a parent to keep your child safe. And I think sometimes people forget how dangerous pools could be. And you could drown in a wading pool that's, you know, 8 inches deep. So they'll drop them off, and, you know, when we say, like, hey, who are you with? Where's your parents at? Sometimes people will get upset. But the people that hire us, the apartment owners and homeowners associations, that's what they pay us for. They pay us to enforce those rules, because at the end of the day, you know, there's a lot of liability out there for the property and for us. So, you know, it's like being a police officer. I'm sure they don't love going out and giving someone a speeding ticket for going 5 miles over, but at the end of the day, that's the rule, and that's how we keep, you know, society safe. So we have some strict policies in place with that with our clients, but it also goes, and this was with everything, is educating them. Educating the residents, educating the kids. You know, the scariest thing is the swimmies. They are horrifying, because kids will jump in and they'll slide right off, and if they're in the 5-foot end, they're sinking right to the bottom. And I think educating parents on the right safety equipment's a big deal. But again, that's still all backup to a kid being in a pool alone. So, but yeah, the daycare one, I think, is a big thing, that when people sign up for a pool or they have a pool in their community, they think that's what's going to happen. And unfortunately, that's not it.
I don't know about you. Nothing irks me more than someone thinking their pool or a commercial pool is a daycare center. And what you were saying, you know, the lifeguard is there to help, but the lifeguard is not a babysitter. And if anybody is listening to this and they're getting mad at me for saying these things, tough, get mad, but it's true. You should never put your kid's life in jeopardy because you think a lifeguard is there, so everything is fine, and you're paying whatever it is, $50, $100 a month dues to use this commercial pool, and it has a lifeguard there. But you know, that lifeguard, they only have 2 eyes, and there's, you know, anywhere between 15 and 50 people there. You can only watch so often. And I've seen it where I go to, you know, commercial areas, water parks and whatnot, where the kids are just roaming around.
Yeah.
And they got their swimmies on, and I'm like, where's your parents? And they're over there on the phone playing Clash of Clans or Facebook, whatever.
Yeah, and our rule of thumb too at Bennington is, and this is how I train our lifeguards, if one person is taking attention away from, just say there's 30, and one person's taking away the attention from 29 other people, we need to get that person figured out. We need to find the parents, we need to get them out of the pool, and I don't care if we need to clear the pool to do that, because at the end of the day, yeah, we're there to make people happy, put smiles on their people's faces, and we're a representation of each apartment complex or HOA that we run. But at the end of the day, our real job is to make sure no one gets hurt and make sure, God forbid, no one dies. And that's when a lifeguard has to pay special attention to one person, it really hurts the rest of the other people, because they're there to keep everyone safe, just not that weak swimmer, because this as well as I do. It's not just weak swimmers that have drowning accidents. It's people that have cramps, heart attacks. And if you're just focusing on the weakest swimmer, the one that's doing the wall climb in the deep end, that's a very scary one for us, because you could have a 12-year-old. You could have an adult. I've seen it before. I've actually saved an adult in my life where they've jumped in the pool and they couldn't swim. And, our brains are trained to just think it's kids that can't swim, but it's not that. It's 12-year-olds, it's adults, and they'll hold onto the wall all around the deep end, and there's just nothing more terrifying. So when we train our lifeguards, we try to instill that, we don't want to scare them out of a job, but they have a lot on their plate. Mm-hmm. They have a lot going on. They need to test the water, in some cases check passes, sign people in, and keep everyone safe. So whatever we could do to eliminate it, preventative lifeguard is the best way to lifeguard. Prevent everything before it happens. But yeah, I think the pools that we've run for years now, we have a much better rapport with the residents and what the expectations are, and they understand it. Because I think you're right. I think people, if they're watching this at home, we might be those guys that, they took it too far. Those were the strict pool guys. But in reality, we're just there to keep them safe, So I would much rather have someone be upset with me about keeping them safe than be upset with me with us underperforming and not keeping them safe, so.
That is definitely a call that I don't want and you don't want. Mm-hmm. That something tragic happened on one of our properties, and it doesn't matter whether it's our fault mm-hmm. or not. Most of the time it's not, mm-hmm. Because most of the time it's the kids pulling the trampoline up the pool. And I keep mentioning that because I keep seeing it on Facebook, and it's parents that are posting this, and because they think it's funny, or jumping off the top of the house into the pool. I'm sorry if you're getting mad at me. It's not funny.
It's not.
So whenever you're walking onto a pool deck, you're going into the gate, or a mom, what are some safety equipment pieces that you should be on the lookout for, mm-hmm. that should be in the pool area?
So if you're walking into a pool, the first thing you want to see is your lifeguard and their rescue tube. That's really important. And a lot of times, I would say 50% of the commercial pools that I go to that aren't run by Bennington, you'll see a lot of time the guards have their tube by their feet, sitting on the ground, or their feet are on it, or they're using it as a backrest. The proper place that you want to see that, and this kind of goes into, if you're doing this, it shows that you care about your trade. And if you're not doing it, it shows that you're disregarding what you've learned from the Red Cross. And again, what else are you going to disregard if this is what you're doing? But the lifeguard should have it right on their plate or right on their lap, with the strap across, with the twirl of the extra strap stringed up. That way, when they are ready to jump in, because when a lifeguard sees someone that needs to be saved, they don't have time to put the tube on and the strap on and everything. And you can't really properly save someone if you're going in to save someone in the deep end or anywhere if that strap's not on. I always tell our lifeguards, you should feel absolutely like you're driving without a seatbelt on. You should feel naked. But the other things you want to look at is a backboard. It is, if you're familiar, it's probably a 6'2" long board with straps with the head immobilizer. That's for if you need to pull someone out of the pool. But you want to make sure it's up to date, and you can kind of do an eye test on it. You see a lot of the old wooden ones that have, just blistered out and. Really.
I've actually not seen any wooden ones.
We've run through a few of them, and we try to retire them. Again, for what you're getting, it's a relatively, cheap item as far as what it could save someone's life. But you'll see pools without them, and what you always want to ask yourself is, well, if I dive and hit my head by accident, or I fall and hit my head, how are they going to get me out of the pool? And still try to maintain a little bit of my of my back or my neck, and that's how they do it. So you'll also see it where they don't have the head immobilizer on them, and that's there for a reason. So I would check for that. The other things that I think are more common too are the throw buoys, the throw rings. They could be helpful. You could use the rescue tube is the same way. And throw it in to do a throw assist. But
now, I just want to clarify the rescue tube. That is that red torpedo tube that used to see people running up and down the beach on Baywatch. Was that
correct?
The show?
Yep, exactly.
Dating myself. So whenever I mention that, everybody should know exactly what I'm talking about.
Dates them back to it. Yeah, okay. Absolutely.
Right. No, sorry.
And no problem. And the thing is too, sometimes kids will want to play with them too, or the lifeguards will throw them in, and and I know the lifeguards are trying to be friendly and everything, but they should be on the lap at all times. So. But the throw buoys, the shepherd's crook is very common as well. So in New Jersey, they actually require AEDs now. That's a pretty big one. I think a step in the right direction for all commercial pools.
Okay, help me out. What is an AED? Because we do not have that in.
It's a defibrillator.
A defibrillator. Yep. Okay. All right.
Yep.
We do not have those at any of the pools that I maintain.
Gotcha. Yeah, and that's a new one for New Jersey. New Jersey did a lot of code updating in the past 2 years. Really aggressive, but I think in a really good way. They're very in tune to it. So they made that requirement really, they gave everyone like 4 months notice, which was fun. But that's also a big one. And I look for that myself when I go into a commercial pool. What's here? What do we have? God forbid the worst case scenario pops up.
Okay.
So
now the safety items that you mentioned, is there any reason why a backyard pool couldn't have one or two of those?
No, I think they should. We talk about this a lot for our aunts and uncles' pools and our friends' pools, and because backyard pools, although that's not my domain, they're kind of scarier to me because there's less regulation, a false sense of security because it's someone's pool. I've seen it. I've been at kids' parties myself, and I'm just like, I'm gonna have a heart attack.
I know what you mean.
But none of that could hurt. And if I had a pool in my backyard, I would have all these things because God forbid you needed to get someone out of the pool. Some might say it's overkill, but no one would really put a value or any extrinsic monetary value on a life. So you would do anything that you could. You would never go to the car dealership and be like, the car looks great. I'll take everything but the airbags.
That is an excellent analogy. Mm-hmm. And so I have a retail store, and I try to sell these safety features, but people look at me like, you're crazy. Why am I going to spend $100 mm-hmm. on a life ring, a safety buoy? And I'm like, it's $100 or $150 if you get the fancy one. Mm-hmm. And you're telling me that your life or the life of your grandkids really mm-hmm. is not worth $150. Now, granted, I don't say that because people would get really ticked off at me, but that's what I want to say.
Yeah.
And especially with the shepherd's hook, I believe that every property should have a shepherd's hook. And if you don't know what that is, it's exactly what it sounds like. It's a long pole with a metal hook on the end that kind of loops around and back. And the reason why you want that shepherd's hook is because if somebody is in the deep end and they're panicking, if you jump in and try to pull them out, they might take you under with them. So whenever I've been trained is to go in, and if they're fighting you, punch them in the face and knock them out, and then pull them out of because if you are panicking, you will die.
Yeah.
Panic will kill you. And a shepherd's hook, you can kind of reach in from the edge. They're not drowning yet, but they're panicking. They're flailing. They're not under the water. They're not actually in any danger yet, but they think it's over.
Yeah.
And that's why they're so the shepherd's hook, you just pull them out.
Yeah, yeah, and that's where it gets scary, whether it's with a trained or untrained person. You know, if a lifeguard jumps into that, they could so easily take an elbow to the nose and be knocked out cold. Then we have two people that are hurt. Yeah, so anytime that you could avoid physically jumping in, I think you increase everyone's chances of success. So at home, that's a great tool because it's an untrained person, and anyone could move a pole. So yeah, it's an interesting point on the residential world though, on why wouldn't people have that? Because I always go to, all of our rules are enforced by code and health departments, and I love that because it sets the standard for us to keep the pool safe. And believe it or not, sometimes we have clients ourselves that we need to educate on why we need to upgrade things and why things, when things sit outside all summer, straps on the backboard, for example, they need to be replaced. And no one, we haven't used that thing in 5 years. Well, that's a good thing.
Right. You don't want to use it, but if you have to, that's called insurance.
Exactly.
It's there for a reason.
Yeah, I don't think you can never spend too much money on safety because it's a little one's life, an older one's life, and you can't.
Right.
So
that is just such a big part of what I try to educate people about is safety. And people will ask me about safety fences and keeping people out and alarms on gate. And yeah, you can have that to a point, but I just recently saw a video of a kid pushing one of these the roller trucks up to a gate, climbing up on the top, and bam, they're over the safety gate. Well, once they're over the safety gate, they're in the pool, they're doing whatever, and you're in the house not watching your kid, and all of a sudden your kid is in the pool. Well, you have to act fast because you thought that safety gate was an end all, and it's not.
It's not.
It's everything, and people think, "Oh, Derek, you're a real stickler about having these things, and you're trying to sell me this, and it's all you're the pool guy that's trying to sell me an extra $150 or $200 worth of stuff that's just going to sit there that I'm never going to use." Well, I hope that you never use it.
Yeah, that's the goal.
Yeah, the goal is for you to never use it. But if you have to, it's there.
Yeah, and also to have a plan. What are you going to do if something does happen? Like I've done this with our friends and family before. Have a plan that everyone knows what to do in the family, whether they're a 5-year-old, the grandmother, who is you can never swim alone. That's like always my rule. Never swim alone. But everyone should kind of know their role in the family, of what to do in the event of a situation. Because kids, I've seen it at a party before. A kid jumped in a spa and just went right to the bottom, and it's horrifying, because it happened just like that. So who's reacting? Can you see the pool? And I think visibility when we're designing our backyard pool, in the works, obviously, for a pool guy, always in the works.
Yeah.
But visibility is a big thing for us. and being able to see all aspects of the pool. Sometimes you'll see the spas in the middle of the pool, so you can't see every angle. And for us, we want to be able to see everything at a glance. So having that plan and just understanding your facility, so.
Okay. Now, do you have pools that have the safety rope?
Yes.
Okay. Anybody ever use that as a tightrope?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everyone's always hanging out on that.
Yeah. Well, people have gotten mad at me, but you're using that as a tightrope, you're out of there.
Yeah.
You're gone. Mm-hmm. And parents will start to yell at me, why'd you tell my kid to stop using that? Brakes and whatnot. It's not there to be a toy.
Yeah.
How do you guys handle that?
So we always try to get on things in the beginning of the season. We have 3 months to swim here in the Northeast. So if we let the kids in the pool walk all over the rules on day one, that's what's going to happen. So we enforce it from day one, explain to them why they can't go on it. And because even with parents or kids, educating them on why you can't do it, I think goes a long way when you do it in the correct fashion. And whether you do it as a group and you pull everyone aside and say, hey, kids, and talk to the parents too on why they can't be on it. Because people love to hang out on it. They love to try to step on it and everything like that. And it really puts a lot of strain on the rope, and God forbid it breaks and we don't have that divider. But really just repetitive education. And whether that is a timeout for kids or, every pool is a little different. That's how we view it. So every kid, every pool is going to call for a different way, but really just staying on top of it. And you'll find with a lot of lifeguards nowadays, if you don't stay on top of them, they won't stay on top of enforcing the rules. So we're constantly challenging the guards on, all right, you had a problem enforcing this rule. How can we get around that? Because, with a bunch of kids working for us, we need to be able to adapt to what puts them in the best environment. Anything at the pool is just that repetitive education on why you can't do it. And it's not because we want to ruin your fun, but it's because we want to keep you safe. That's the theme.
Now, I had one set where the rope would break away because I had it tied down to the point where if someone jumped on it, it would yank it out of the wall and cause damage to the concrete pool. What are some of the negatives to, say, if a property owner or an HOA person is watching this, what could it cost them if they don't get on top of people using that safety rope as a tightrope?
It could be, a decent amount depending on what they do, because if they pull that out of your shell or they break the hook, we're out there having to demo that, and you're thinking hundreds, if not low thousands of dollars to do that. When you think about the cleanup and the accessibility and the downtime and the integrity of it too. It's not something you want to do with a brand new plastered pool. So we always, on the same topic, there's a lot of things that we can do in the pool world to prevent things like that. But yeah, I think it's just one of those things that property, apartment owners view everything as customer service, as they should, but it's also, let's keep your expenses low so you can keep the rent lower too, and that's a big one. If you rip both those hooks out, or even if you break the rope, they're not exactly cheap, so them educating their residents is really important. Now,
I'm a guy, I want to go out there and I want to take my family, watch my kids play. I'm hanging out with a buddy, and I want a beer. Is it okay if I have a glass bottle on the pool, or
absolutely not.
Glass like this?
Nope, not at all.
Explain why.
So, God forbid this were to break, and it gets into your pool. Yeah, you got to drain your pool.
I would see it, right?
Yeah. Of course, no, you wouldn't.
No.
Even if it was brown or green, it might be a little more accessible to visibility. But still, there's the potential that someone could cut their foot in the pool is way too risky. We actually had this year, it was a first, someone brought in glass goggles that they use for diving. I'm not a diver, so I don't know exactly.
I do dive, and I've never heard of glass goggles.
Yeah, whatever this guy was trying to sell me, but it was glass goggles that broke. And the only way we could keep a pool safe and completely insure it is got to drain it. A lot of people don't. They'll vacuum it. They'll vacuum with an external. But the only way to fully ensure that all the glass is out is drain it, sweep it, walk it multiple times, and take every precautionary. But the glass is that when that glass goggle broke in that pool, it ruined that community, like their mood for a very long time. It was on the hottest day of the summer on a weekend, and it wasn't fun. It is so far having glass, and people think, well, I'm not going to drop it. But what happens when a beach ball hits you,
right,
and you drop it? And if it goes anywhere near the pool or even around the pool area, it's. Yeah, that's a quick no-no for us. So, yeah.
So, I want people to have fun. And, we're talking about commercial pools, but nothing that we have said can't pertain to a backyard pool.
Absolutely.
Also.
Yeah.
Because, it doesn't matter if you're in your own backyard. If you want to have a beer, you want to have some wine, they make non-breakable glasses. People always like, well, I have to have my martini in a martini glass and my beer in a mug or whatever, but they make those vessels specifically for the beverage of choice in a non-breakable format. There's no reason to have glass near a pool ever.
Yeah, it's a small sacrifice people can make for the safety and from a budgetary standpoint, it's not exactly cheap to drain and fill up a pool. So from both aspects, you can invest in glass that you're talking about and just make everyone's life a little bit easier, and that's what life is. You make sacrifices everywhere. Why not at the pool? I think people treat pools is a different thing because it's really hard to name anything else that is so much fun but is so risky that every day the common public just gets to utilize. And you put them both together, and it's like a kid when they walk into the commercial pool for the first time or any pool and they run. They can't stop running because they can't contain it. But it's the same way for adults. They want to have fun. They want to kick back. They want to, like you said, pull up Facebook, because that's very common with people ignoring what's going on at the pool on their phone. But no other where in the world do you have something so fun but yet so dangerous. And people choose to ignore the dangerous side of it. And sometimes it takes hearing a story to really, check it back home for a little bit, and it's tough every time I read a story like that, because a lot of these things could have been prevented, but it's tough. But people that sacrifice for safety, they got to do it. So
as you know, I run a very large Facebook group, swimming pool and spa owners, and there's a lot of people in there, and they're always asking variations of questions, and they will put pictures, and I try not to be the bad guy all of the time, but I want people to have fun. I want people to understand the dangers. Whenever I was going to school, I had a teacher that said, if you know it's dangerous, then it's less dangerous. If you are aware of the danger, then that kind of takes some of the bite away from the danger. But if you ignore the danger, like ignoring kids in a pool playing, and I'll do it. I'll go out. I'll kick back. I'll let my kids play. But I'm looking, and I got my eye open, and I'm listening, and I've got those safety measures because I'm not going to let my kids die in a fun pool. That's never fun.
Yeah.
So sticking on this topic of safety, and we're not going to be able to cover it all because it's such a vast and very important topic, especially among pools that get lots of traffic, like a commercial pool or a backyard pool where someone's just swimming by themselves, nobody's watching. Swim lessons. How important do you believe swim lessons are?
I think they are extremely important. Anything you could do to get your child or anyone on the right track of swimming, everyone should know how to swim. And I understand that's not feasible or possible in all scenarios, but from the smallest age that they can, I would highly recommend everyone sign their kid up for swim lessons.
Absolutely.
It puts a tremendous amount of opportunity for success on that child. Even if they're not the strongest swimmer from day one, they know the core skills, they know the basics, and they could build upon it. I was never on a swim team or anything like that, but I knew how to swim from day one. I remember being in swimmies, but I always remembered knowing the core basics of how to stay afloat and that. But I'll put it this way: when I do have kids, they'll be in swim lessons as early as possible,
right.
Because that's a good way. And we've considered launching this at our pools, a swim lesson program for each of our communities. Because we feel that, and to give you some insight on how much I do think it is important, we feel that we can get we could shed a lot of liability by teaching people how to swim. And if the pool's safer, then it's safer for everybody, So I'm a big proponent of it. There's a lot of great swim lesson companies out there. There's franchises, and what's nice is there's, in the Pennsylvania area, I know there's a bunch of indoor places. So even though we're, in the cold Northeast, it's still possible. So I would highly recommend you go out of your way, before any Christmas present you buy them, any iPod or iPad or whatever, get them swim lessons first. That should be the number one priority.
I did that with my kids. They'll be in their, second season worth of swim lessons. And my goal with my kids is to be walking by a body of water that is way above their head, me bump them in without them expecting, and them to fall into the pool and come up swimming relaxed. So swim lessons, very, very good. And you are launching or about to launch.
We're considering launching because we're trying to do whatever we can to keep our pools safe. That's what makes us a good company, or makes any pool company a good company, is the ones that are continuously challenging themselves to be better. That's why I love your Facebook group. Is mainly everyone in there wants to become better, and so I've been inspired in there multiple times. So the swim lesson thing is, hey, we have a big reach and we have the means to train lifeguards on how to do swim lessons. So why not do it? So that's something that we're hoping to launch by not this upcoming summer, but next one. Because there's a lot of good companies out there, but sometimes it's hard for, swim lessons. I don't think are always the cheapest thing. So if we could provide a more accessible thing, to even if we teach 10 kids at an affordable swim lesson rate, we did more than teaching 0. So it's kind of our viewpoint.
Going back to the point of what price do you put on a life? And unlike a shepherd's hook or a life buoy that has a certain lifespan and you're going to have to repurchase it, swim lessons, they'll be able to use the rest of their life.
Yeah.
So that is swim lessons, and I preach this too much, that swim lessons are vital, and I think that everybody should have swim lessons. People will come in the Facebook group and they'll say, I just bought a house with a pool. What should I do to keep my kids safe? Swim lessons is the first thing that I put. And some of them will be like, that's not the answer I was looking for. I'm like, that's your number one line.
Yeah.
And all the other things, the shepherd's hook, the life buoy, the safety fence, all of that is a secondary, because even if all of that stuff is there, if a kid falls in the deep end and doesn't know how to swim, if nobody's there to use those safety devices, then what good are they?
Yeah.
Whereas swim lessons will be useful throughout the course of that child's life.
Yeah, absolutely.
So kind of getting off topic or off that topic, because I feel like I beat that drum just too much, where people are tired of hearing me say that.
Yeah, you're taking all the fun out of pools.
Yeah, I'm taking the fun out of pools. I can't have my glass beer bottle. I need to buy this extra stuff, and you're just the mean pool guy trying to sell me something. But so as we're wrapping up here, what are you most excited about in the industry, in the pool industry as a whole, or things coming down the pipe? What are you excited about?
So we are pushing more automation everywhere. They say knowledge is power. So with the automation that we're putting in and getting everything reported to our phones in real time, it's something that what we're trying to do in keeping a budget-friendly concern in mind for apartment complexes and HOAs is, what can we do to get automation in? Because, on the safety topic, having automation is a really good way to keep your pool safe. It's one step further, but it enables us to really manage a pool much better. So, they had a bunch of good systems, from back in the day, but now the reporting is getting much easier. And you could throw these units in, and you could save money on chemicals by having the automation. If a pump goes down, we'll know about it. If the chlorine goes out of whack, we know about it. And I think it's something that in the commercial world and the residential world, that's everything's going to your phone and to your app. And how can you tie that app into your life, and what can it do to make it more efficient? So I'm really excited for that. I mean, there's already great technology out there, but anything that's going to move our industry forward and help keep it safer, I'm just tuned into. So that's why I love coming to the show, because every year I find something that I'm like, I didn't know about that. But if it could help us keep it safer or save money for our clients, that's what that's why I come here, is to find new stuff like that. So I thrive for the new technology.
Okay. And for those of you watching that don't know, we were doing this interview right after one of the sessions at the Atlantic City Pool and Spa Show. So as we're wrapping up, you service commercial pools in the Northeast. How can somebody get in contact with your company if they want to inquire about you servicing their pools? So
they would just go to our website at benningtonpoolservices.com, and they could actually fill out a new client intake form, and we'd have a bid over to them very quickly. We've kind of streamlined that whole process of how do we get clients in and out real quick, so we really made it easy for them. So they could go there and get in contact with our sales team and really find the best setup for them. So, and also we're very active on social media as well, with content on Snapchat, Facebook, and Instagram. So I always tell new clients and new employees, check us out on there to see who we are as a company. We really take what we do serious, but we also we want to have fun, and we consider ourselves to have a good culture. Everyone enjoys working here, so, but I think that translates to clients as well, because if we have happy employees, and they're going to treat our clients well. So, but yeah, the website is the best way.
Okay. Well, I will try to gather all of that and put it in the show notes.
Cool.
So if you guys want to check that out, you have a need for his service in the Northeast area, please give him a shout in one of the forms that he mentioned. I didn't know people still use Snapchat, but I guess
the kids do.
The kids do.
Yeah, the kids do. So I don't.
I'm not a kid anymore. I don't guess. But anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Derek,
for coming out here and explaining this safety stuff. For you watching, if you have gotten anything out of this, please hit that like button, subscribe, and we look forward to seeing you on that next one. Thanks for watching.